All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to my Betco webinar on the benefits of chemical management. I am your host today, Jeff Iverson, and the presenter today will be our Senior Product Manager, Barry Rosenthal. So welcome, Barry.
Thank you.
Today, the topic is benefits of chemical management. Where cleaning chemicals are not accurately diluted, it's like pouring money down the drain. Learn how the right chemical management system can combat product waste and provide other benefits for every and any facility. Today, Barry's going to be talking about safety and sustainable benefits, the cost savings, and obviously the Betco FastDraw program. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Barry. Well, one thing first, we'll answer all your questions. If you would save them till the end, if you'd go ahead and type them into the Q&A board, we'll get to them all when we get done, and we'll try to get as many answers as we can in the time allowed. So with that, I'll turn it over to Barry.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, so we are going to cover today, we're going to just explain what we mean by chemical management, what the benefits of chemical management is, and as Jeff mentioned, we're going to do a dive into our FastDraw program, and we're going to introduce our newest dispenser, just launched this past month, our new FastDraw PRO dispenser, and talk about some of the advantages over the old dispenser, and cover that. So let's get going. All right, so when we say chemical management, it's simply the process of accessing chemicals. So it's taking a concentrated solution and either diluting it or pouring it into another container. And there's obviously two ways to do that. You can manually do that, or what we're going to talk about, use a dilution control system. So I would challenge you, if you've ever tried to actually measure a half an ounce, and if you actually had a measuring cup in order to do that. Even so, it is extremely difficult to measure a half ounce. So what ends up happening? People usually add way more than they need, or wasting money and potentially creating a hazard and damaging surfaces. And this is important when we're talking about super concentrates. So most of the chemicals now, the high volume chemicals, are diluted at a half ounce, sometimes a quarter ounce. So really difficult to get those accurate dilutions without the use of a dilution system. So what are some chemical management dispenser benefits? We mentioned saving money over the glug. You know, that was the way when, you know, we put in 2 ounces and we're supposed to put in 2 ounces, and somebody pours in and they eyeball it and say, yeah, it looks about 2 ounces, when really it's 3 or 4 ounces. You're not exposed to concentrated chemicals. The bottles are spill proof and leak proof, so there's no contact with chemicals. The performance, you get the same guaranteed performance every time because you're getting the right dilution every time. The very simple to train. All the bottles and labels, specific with our program, are numbered and color coded, so it's really easy to train your staff on how to use the products and which products to use. The bottles are recyclable, so once they're done, they can be recycled like normal plastic bottles. And you can see the source reduction in the landfill. So by one concentrated product, in this example, we have Quadstat. In one concentrated product, you can have the equivalent of up to 544 ready-to-use quarts. So as we talk about sustainability and green and lowering the impact on our environment, using a system like this will have great benefits. And just simple and convenient to use. They're small, small size, easy to use, easy to dilute, and really helps you clean in a much more productive way. And obviously, there are cost savings involved, which we'll get to in the next slide. So the bottom line is, over diluting is going to waste money, right? You're going to use product that you don't need, and you're going to give the best performance. So by having the right dilution, you're not going to have to go back and clean. Or if you over dilute it, you're potentially damaging surfaces or causing streaks, or just making it just not getting the results or the benefits that you want. And also, prevent accidents. You could accidentally use the product too concentrated. It could lead to, irritation. It could lead to people, overwhelming odors or what have you. So by having something like a chemical management dispenser that's always going to put out the right solution, it's going to make sure that the use is proper and the chemical is at the right dilution for the application. Okay. Now we're going to jump into our FastDraw program. This is Betco's FastDraw program. We've had a version of FastDraw out since the early 2000s, and we recognized pretty early on that if we wanted to have a proprietary chemical program, we wanted to develop our own system that was simple, accurate, and reliable. And that's when we launched our FastDraw program. And we've since launched several different dispensers, several different types of applications that we'll talk about. And really, what the FastDraw program boils down to is the bottle. It's the bottle refill. Inside that bottle refill is a sealed insert that has the dilution. And our program, unlike some others that are out there, has one important differentiator. The metering tips have two different metering tips for both bottle and bucket, and for use with two different flow rates. And why that's important is the 1 gallon, the bottle fills at 1 gallon per minute and the bucket fills at 4 gallons per minute. There are some systems that have one flow rate at 2.5. If you've ever used these, they are extremely hard to fill bottles because of the high flow rate. And it takes a long time to fill them up, bucket, and especially an automatic scrubber. And also, there are some systems out there that have two flow rates, but they have one tube or one dilution. And it can be very accurate for one and quite inaccurate for the other side. So when we're talking about 1 to 256, because of the different flow rates, you can be way off on your dilution, anywhere from 1 to 150 to 1 to 200, or you could be too lean at like 1 to 500. And when we talk about disinfectants and more scrutiny on that, it's really important to make sure you have the right dilution, or else they're going to see that and either develop some sort of corrective action in order to take care of that. So very important, and we wanted to make sure we devised our system that, again, was as most accurate as possible for both bottles and bucket auto scrubbing filling. And the bottles themselves are lightweight. They're 2-liter bottles. We have over 40 plus, and we originally launched the program with 12, and we're now up to over 40 products within the line. And taking a little deeper dive on the refill, mentioned the two flow rates. The bottles are numbered and color coded, making it easier to train. We do have a whole green program in the line, which have a third-party certification. There's a curved tube that goes all the way into the corner to make sure you get complete evacuation of the chemical. And so these are just some of the features that you're going to get with any of the FastDraw products. Now, all of the FastDraw 2-liter refills work with all these different dispensers. So whether you need a 1-product dispenser for smaller locations, the 4-product lockable dispenser, the FastDraw Pro, which we'll talk about more in detail here in the next slide, the FastDraw Freedom, which is a portable dispensing system. So basically it does everything with a wall mount, except you hook it up to a hose and take it out to any type of location that you need in order to fill products remotely. The FastDraw Foamer, which throws about 10 to 12 feet of foam. So the nice thing about that is 1 2-liter package, and you can do all these different dilution systems. Okay, now we'll talk about the redesigned FastDraw Pro. You can see the old dispenser there that we had. We launched that in the think in 2013, it was a good unit, but we saw opportunities in order to improve that. The one thing you'll notice right away is how smaller it is. What we did was we took the orientation of the bottle, and instead of taking up that large space by having that front panel, we moved it on its side. And because of that, we have 37% less wall space, and it's 32% lighter than the old unit. And what that means is we're already seeing benefits where we could install a FastDraw Pro in certain spaces where we couldn't previously. So it adds a lot more versatility to where we can use the FastDraw Pro. The other thing we did is it has a new push button design. This is something where you push and click the chemical into place versus the old rotator dial. And what that we found is there's a much longer life to that. On the old dial unit, there would be a point where that detent where you got into the right spot would wear out. It was very hard to make sure you were hitting the right chemical. So the newer dial is it's much more. I think it's more intuitive, and it's also gonna hold up much better in the field. It's easier access to internal parts. Basically, just opening up that door accesses all 4 chemicals, where previously we had 2 doors, much tighter, much harder to get inside the dispenser. So we now have that one single door with the one locking key. The action gap version, which we'll talk about in a second, has a larger, longer 8-foot hose, which is in tighter cleaning closets where you can't put your scrubber in. It's nice. That'll actually be able to fit, to be able to get out to areas where you could just bring the scrubber to the entrance and be able to fill the automatic scrubber. When I say action gap and air gap, for those who don't know, that's the backflow device. So because these are hooked up to the main water supply, the city's main water supply, there has to be some type of backflow in order to prevent chemical from entering the water supply. The action and air gap are 2 methods in which to do that. 95% of the country has the action gap approved. Only certain pockets and some areas like in the northwest part of the country, they are going to require the air gap. But when in doubt, go with the action gap. It is much more reliable. The air gap requires a lot more maintenance, and the action gap is going to be much better for you in the long run. So all these different features we think just gives the unit a lot more versatility, a lot more use, a lot more reliability. Okay, so what you want to make sure you do is put the necessary information around the dispenser. We have wall charts that come with the unit showing you how to operate the dispenser. There's product charts that we have on our Betco program that lets you create product selector charts. These are part of our iBet charter program. And it'll show the user exactly where to use each product. So, for cleaning glass and mirrors, our deep blue glass cleaner, for example, and our floor cleaner, pH 7 Ultra. And you can customize that for the facility. You can put the customer's name on there and your distributor name, and be able to put that right next to the dispenser. And always a good idea to have safety data sheets, either some way that they can access them online, or actually have a little book to make sure that that the chemicals they be able to get all that information necessary. So just overall, some tips before we finish the webinar and open them up for questions. Some tips when using the dispenser. So as I mentioned, these are hooked up to the water supply, so water pressure should be between 25 and 70 psi. If the pressure is too high, we do have a 40 psi pressure regulator that you can use. Or what I found is if you go to like a camping store where they hook up like to the trailers, they usually have those pressure regulators there. So, but optimally, that's 40 psi is what you want. If you get too high, it can lead to potentially inaccurate dilutions or excess foam and And so I'll always kind of make sure that the pressure is accurate. The other thing is make sure the pressure is consistent. So don't, sometimes if they run the laundry or the dish machines, it causes a decrease in the pressure, and so try to install in an area where you're going to have consistent pressure. Make sure you shut off the water when not in use. You always want to prepare for the worst case scenario. If a hose were to, accidentally fray or something else happened and someone left and someone had the water on, it could lead to disastrous circumstances. So shut off the water when not in use. I know that's hard to do, but just, the best you can do is advise them that when to shut off the dispenser. As I mentioned, know your regulations. So if they require an air gap, put an air gap dispenser on. Sometimes there's a special connections to the sink that you may need. So as best you can, know your local regulations. So in general, with chemical management, you want to make sure the chemical is stored below the dispenser. You don't have that problem because it shows you exactly where to put these with the FastDraw unit. But in general, you want to make sure of that. And then preventative maintenance. So this is a little machine, just like an auto scrubber or anything else. Check the dispenser routinely for any type of wear to the hoses, tubing, seals, and replace as needed. We have replacement parts for pretty much everything within the dispenser. So,
all right, questions. Barry, FastDraw 1 and FastDraw Pro, where would you recommend an installation of FastDraw 1 instead of a FastDraw Pro?
Yeah, sure. So really it's relates to the volume of chemical that you're going to be running through. So with smaller facilities that aren't going to have a huge demand for chemicals or have that large volume, we'd recommend a FastDraw 1. With the FastDraw Pro, we estimate you probably want to go through maybe about 12 cases a year of product, depending on that. So that would be for the larger volumes. The other thing, because the FastDraw Pro is lockable, so usually like in a healthcare area or other sensitive areas, they may want to have to lock the chemical. But usually, again, it's that threshold of the usage, those large volume usage. That's where we have the FastDraw Pro. Where we're not going to have that large volume, the FastDraw 1 would be more advantageous.
Okay, that's great, Barry. I know also, like in education or in schools, that a lot of times they fill up their cart and they refill their cart with a towel tissue and other chemicals, and that in a central area where they might fill up a glass cleaner and spray and wipes. And then out in their outlying areas, down in the wings of the school, they have a FastDraw 1, because that's where they're filling up the mop buckets, but they're not really filling up their pork products there. So a lot of times you can put that, it's smaller, it's more compact, and it can go down there. So a couple other questions that we have is, what risk does the business have with cross-chemical contamination with the FastDraw Pro and the chemicals coming out of the same hose?
That's a great question. So we actually have 4 check valves in the unit, in the selector dial. So every time you turn to the next product, the other chemical is completely shut off, and that check valve isn't open until you push the button. So there's really no cross-contamination concern there because of those 4 individual check valves. And that's really, we wanted to make sure of that, because that would be a problem. Obviously, you expecting you get disinfectant and you get glass cleaner mixed in there. We don't want that to happen. So because of the way it's designed with those check valves and that chemical being completely shut off, there really is no way to have any type of cross contamination within that selector valve.
Okay, next question would be, any plans of having Green Earth ready-to-use peroxide cleaner in a larger 2-liter bottle?
Well, again, this is dilution system. So this is where we have the concentrates. We do have the Green Earth peroxide cleaner in that 2-liter size, which dilutes makes about 34 ready-to-use gallons in the mop bucket.
Okay. All right, other questions?
And for those, one thing I'll just throw out there. So all kinds of good information as far as on the system on www.betco.com. We have a complete sell sheet program that shows all the products and the dilutions on there in our program brochure. So I would encourage you to investigate that too if you have any questions about any specific products as well.
All right, Barry. Well, that concludes all the questions and concludes today's My Betco webinar. So as always, Barry, great information. Thank you all, and stay tuned for the next session.
Thank you, everyone.